Hey everybody, what's going on? What's good? Welcome to another episode of the Conscious Conservative Network Civics and Constitution discussion. As you see, I have my one of my favorite peoples over here, Miss Panky, in the building. We're going to talk about a couple things this evening. We're going to talk civics. We're going to talk constitutionality, as we always do. There's a couple of things I want to bring up in light of what's been happening the last, I don't know, 9 months, to be fair, because today is what, the 25th or something like that. So literally 9 months and a couple days. Um, as far as immigration is concerned, these red flag laws are concerned, all this stuff. We're going to bring all this stuff up. And remember, I want you to, look into these research, what have you. If I'm wrong, come tell me I'm wrong. Be like, fool, you wrong, and explain to me why I'm wrong. Just don't say I'm wrong. Explain why you are correct and I am wrong, because that's the only way to get correct information out. But I do my best to give you the most correct information, and I wouldn't want to steer you in a wrong direction. Um, with these things, this is obviously, like I said, strictly educational purposes, etc. So, um, we're gonna jump into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the immigration bit. We know the whole thing that went down with the whole um the whipping, right? The whipping of people at the border, right? They're ripping Haitians and black people and slavery and all that stuff, right? And obviously we know that's not true. Um Anybody that has ridden a horse or been around horses before knows those are reins, and there's no way you can grab someone, whip them, and steer a horse at the same time. I mean, I mean, I'm just saying, like if you're not holding on to them reins, that horse is gonna go crazy because he doesn't know which way he's supposed to go. He's either gonna throw you off or what have you. We know they got that wrong, and we know they're doubling down on it and all that, but the deeper issue here, obviously, is the immigration issue, right? That no one is actually talking about. They want to say, we got to stop the surge. It's an invasion and all these different things, but they're not thinking about how we got here, right? So I'm going to present. I got to share my screen here. So don't mind me. Don't mind me just watching. So I want to present to you the Immigration and Nationality Act 1965 Hart-Celler Act. Those of you that have followed me on social media for a while, I haven't talked about it in a Conscious Conservative Network at all, hardly, because it hasn't been an issue till now. And those of you that follow my podcast heard me talk about this act a lot, that basically opened up immigration, literally wide open from the original legislation in 1920. For immigration, which caused the influx into Ellis Island, etc. Y'all can read about that story later. When I don't have time to explain that whole story behind that. But with the Hart-Celler Act, right, what ended up happening was this system, right, prioritized family reunification, right? We've heard that before, right? We can't separate children from that, right? This is where this context comes from the Hart-Celler Act, right? That's how we got the anchor baby situation, right? All that going on, right? But as you can see here on the screen in particular, let me make that maybe a little bit bigger so everybody can actually see it. I wonder if that helps a little bit, or it might exacerbate it too much. Okay, there we go. That's perfect, actually. So the Hart-Celler Act, the reason this came to existence because they thought that the original was discriminatory, this, that, and the third, right? Whatever. We know now what is the end result is, but we'll get to the end result in a second, right? So the system, like I said, prioritized family reunification, employment, and refugee status, right? The spouses, minor children, and parents remained non-quota immigrants. Each country received an annual cap of 20,000 people that they could, send that be accepted into the United States, Now, why would that be a problem, right? Why would that be a problem? Think about that a second. It's not a big deal, you know. We're just going to allow 20,000 people, but people didn't gauge that the population would grow like the way it did from 1965 to 2000, right? I mean, I guess the foresight on that was lost, right? Here's the other funny thing, right? We've heard the story about, you know, model minorities, right? We've heard this slur. I mean, to me, it's a slur. To some, it may not be, but this is where that manifested from. Model minorities coming from Asian countries in particular, as you can see right here, right? And then what else is disturbing about that, as you can see here, the law does not provide for immigration by unskilled workers in sectors like agriculture, construction, and domestic service.
So you saying
Go
so
ahead.
you're saying that they specified, they were more specific of which kind of immigrants that were coming through. They wasn't just saying if you show up on the border you could come through. You had to have some specific criteria you had to meet.
That's correct. But yet they cited the original Immigration Act of 1920, right, as discriminatory. Tell me how that works. I'm going to say, y'all please tell me how that works. But this is the basis of the immigration of, you know, basically the immigration crisis we're seeing today, right? Now, with that, when this bill was passed, starting in the 1970s, what you saw was Hispanic, Mexican males, working males coming across the border, taking advantage of this, right? And then eventually, as these men started accumulating money, guess what they did? They started bringing their families over, right? They started bringing their wife and their kids come over. And then next, you know, well, we need grandma because she's part of our family unit. We need grandma. Then we need uncle, right? This is where we're at today with this, right? Now, based off of this, okay, based off of this, we get the Immigration Act of 1990. Now, why is this particular bill significant, right? This bill right here started handing out visas like willy-nilly. And I hate using Wikipedia, but they have the most concise that we can get through in a allotted amount of time without going into the nuance of everything, right? But Immigration of 1990, and whoever wrote this actually wrote this exactly right. I vetted it, all that good stuff before. But this is where we are. The immigrant visas that were also changed in non-immigrant visas like the H-1B for highly skilled workers, right? There are also cutbacks to allotment of visas available for extended relatives, right? But instead, they created the TPS visa. Like we seen the Haitians that were here under Obama through Trump, they were under TPS status, and then they were being sent back as of towards the end of Trump's administration, right? We've seen it with the Biden administration right now, sending these people back. They send them to Gitmo, right? Sending these same people to Gitmo. But I ask if the Hart-Celler Act was supposed to be non-discriminatory, right? How is the Immigration Act of 1990 not extra discriminatory against people? That's the question to be asked, right? And y'all can think on that and let your wheel spin on that a second, right? But then with that, and this is just a little bit more breakdown of the diversity immigrant visa program. Now, didn't we just say in the Hart-Celler Act that they changed the demographic of who can or who cannot come over, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
then they lay down this immigrant visa program within the Immigration Act of 1990. With that, right, we have obviously they have to have some sort of quota demographic from each country and skill trade and this, that, and the third. This diversity visa program literally opened up our job markets to the point where no Americans basically can get jobs. I mean, let's just keep it flat out, plain and simple, right? I mean, when you open up your job market to the world, Americans do not have a chance to make a living wage, right? This living wage plays into this, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-visa. I'm not any of that. But when you have situations with this visa program, and I'm going to highlight this piece right here, people who do not have U.S.-based eligible family members or employers are able to sponsor their visas have very few opportunities for permanent legal immigration to the United States, even if they have promising attributes that could benefit the country. But we've seen that change because a lot of people with the H-1B visas, right, are getting green card status. There's one more piece I didn't pull up, but I'm going to pull it up right now so you get an understanding. And it's this one right here. This one right here is the nail in the coffin. It's also known as IRA. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger so everybody can see. Okay, I think that's better. Forget the dog's eye over there. That don't mean anything. But you have IRA, the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. They said it was to strengthen U.S. immigration laws, adding penalties for undocumented immigrants who commit crimes while in the United States or who stay in the United States for statutory defined periods of time, which means you overstayed your visa, things of this nature, right? It was supposed to improve border control by imposing criminal penalties for racketeering, alien smuggling, and use or creation of fraudulent immigration-related documents. Now, let's stop right there a second. What's actually happening at the southern border? We have the cartels on one side working with, might as well call them the cartel, on the American side to traffic these people through the border. So instead of upholding the law that's on the book to stop this, they just allow the borders open anyway. That way they don't have to track anybody down and use these resources, right, to track these people down. Now, what's the other piece of this? Okay. I won't, it's not on here, but I will also add, right? I will also add the fact that when these people are denied asylum, right? And they send these people back, and then they come back, as you can see here, they got to wait 10 years. They got to wait 10 years. We don't see that happening because we keep seeing these repeat offenders keep coming back. We keep catching them. You see them in the news all the time. We keep catching them, send them back. We keep catching them, sending them back. We keep catching them, sending them back. I mean, whatever happened to Title VIII, right? I mean, you walking up to the border is not seeking asylum. I think we all agree can agree on this, right? But here's the funny thing, right? We talk about everybody talks about the Constitution being trampled on. Okay. I care to incline that the Constitution is not even being imposed.
Nope.
Right? Because if Congress has the power, right, over immigration, right, the laws of immigration, and the executive branch can literally shut down the border under his executive authority, why are neither one being done? And this is every president since Reagan. Why have the borders not been shut down? If we have such a crisis of people coming from this, that, and the third in that country, why has the president not said, you know what, we're done here? Boop, shut the border down. Why have we not done it?
Because of bleeding heart Americans who don't understand why we have a border, why we have a back door. They're looking at the race of the people. They don't. No one is considering the consequences of leaving our border open.
Mm-hmm. That's basically it. And even rumor has it that they think these people are in on it, like, you know what I'm saying, profiting off of it. I'm not going to say that on here because that'd be out of scope. But y'all come to your own assumptions on why they want to keep this border open and continue just disregarding the Constitution and using their constitutional powers to solve a problem that millions of Americans are saying is a problem. Even they're showing it on TV that this is a problem. I'll leave that there. The next thing I want to get into, and I think this will probably, this will round us out for the end here, is the HR 3755. If you guys don't know what that is the abortion bill that was passed in the House. Let me see if I can actually bring it up right now, because I guess so many people were hitting it so hard, trying to pull it up so bad, it was literally dragging the servers out. There it is. Yep. So we'll add this back to the stream. So the HR 3755, the Women's Health Protection Act of 2021. And this bill basically says that abortion is legal basically up to crowning. Now, I know the pro-abortion advocates are like, well, yeah, that's a good thing. Body autonomy and women's rights and all this stuff. And you're a man and you can't comment on that. And I'm like, but I can comment on it. But I don't want to comment on the moral issue of this thing. I want to comment on the constitutionality of it. Because again, this abortion debate steps on so many constitutional boundaries. I will be here for weeks explaining it. But with this bill in general, this Women's Health Protection Act of 2021, see, this bill was presented to counter Texas's abortion bill. That doesn't have any teeth. Keep in mind, people, the Texas the abortion law, that was the abortion, I don't know, resolution or whatever. It's law, okay? Doesn't have any teeth because it's not enforceable by a state entity. So it doesn't have teeth. But they passed this thinking they're going to counter their Texas law. Now, here's the problem. This bill uses basically federal preemption. And those of you that don't know what federal preemption is basically federal law takes precedent, right? Per the supremacy clause in the Constitution. Federal law takes precedent. And all other laws, if you know the supremacy clause notwithstanding, right? They're null and void. What this law will do will literally overturn every single abortion law in every single state. You heard me correctly. This will overturn it. Now, why is this a problem? We have to understand. We have to understand the three powers of government, right? We have the concurrent powers. I'm sorry, the enumerated powers, the concurrent powers, and the reserved powers, right? Let me see how I can pull that graphic up so everybody can understand where I'm at here. That's not what I want. Perfect graphic. Give me a second here. Okay, let me add the screen back. Okay, so you can see that perfect graphic, right? We have your enumerated powers. Your concurrent powers are the powers that are shared, right? That are shared by the federal government and the state government. And then you have the reserved powers, okay, that only the states have, right? Let's keep in mind, if we look at the enumerated powers, right? What is their enumerated powers, right? Coin money, regulate interstate foreign commerce, conduct, establish rules of naturalization. We're just talking about that with the Hart-Celler Act. Regulate postal systems. You see the graphic. Concurrent powers: levy taxes, borrow money, make and enforce laws, establish courts, charter banks, and take property for public purpose with just compensation, eminent domain. Let's look at state government. Let's look at the reserved powers, what we have here, right? Regulate intrastate commerce, conduct elections, provide for public health, safety, welfare, and morals, establish local governments, maintain militia, ratify amendments to the Constitution. Let's keep this in mind, people, right? As you see this here, right? Where in the enumerated powers does it give the federal government to pass a law for abortion? Now, going off of their premise that abortion, right, as you remember the bill, right? Oh, wrong place. But you remember the bill? It's the Women's Health Act, right? Whatever the thing was, right? This is health. Nothing in enumerated powers says anything about that. We see under the reserved powers provide for public health, safety, welfare, and morals. So here's the problem. Here's the problem that we're faced here, right? If the federal government passes this bill and literally abuses federal preemption, this would be the biggest power grab from the states we have ever seen. This gives the federal government a green light to nullify any laws that states pass they don't like. Does anybody not see that as a problem? It could be a law that the people of the state, let's say, for example, not you, Miss Pinky, in general, but I'm just saying you as everybody out here that's going to watch this, etc. You might have a law on the state books that you guys advocated for and lobbied for, and then the federal government comes in and nullifies it using federal preemption. Is that okay? Like, you know what I mean? Is that okay? Because if that's okay, then I don't even know why at this point, why we have a constitutional republic. I mean, you would rather take the powers away from the people and give it to the federal government that doesn't have the jurisdiction to do such a thing, right?
The Constitution is supposed to rein in government power, not be the means in which they expand it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we say there's progressives on both sides or big government statists on both sides, because both sides like to try to expand government overreach for the things that they like, when they don't understand that the reason we're set up the way we are is to rein in, because our founders wanted the people to have more control than the government. And I think
Right.
that's where we're losing it, because people or feel powerless about a certain topic like abortion or immigration or whatever. And so they'll try to look for recourse in Uncle Sam and start using the big arm of Uncle Sam to push, like they're pushing the abortion issue because they're mad at Texas, when they could just say, well, move to New York then and go get your abortion and go back home to Texas. Or, I think a lot of people don't understand that each state is set up with its own priorities based on what the populace
Mm-hmm.
wants. So if the populace in Texas want to ban abortion, that's what the populace in Texas want. And then they saying, well, I live in Texas and I want move to a blue state. Or if you're red and you are against abortion, maybe you might have a change of heart and have to get up and move to Texas because that's a state that supports. So I think that's what people are misunderstanding, that the Constitution isn't to rein us in, is to
Mm-hmm.
check Uncle Sam. But
Yeah,
that's
and you know
answers the
what's
question.
even you, and you know what, and I'm going to add to that, right? Because
Hmm.
there's an accountability aspect to this, right? And the accountability is on the citizens, right? If the
Yes.
citizens are not holding their state legislatures in check, you have already failed. And to those people that will probably dissent to this portion of the video later, this is your indictment. You did not step up when Texas, for example, was trying to pass this bill. You just sat down at your dinner table watching TV, watching your CNN, your Fox News, or whatever you're watching that night, and not stepping up and saying, wait, I don't like this. You would rather look to the federal government to check your state when that's not how this works. You are to check the people in your states that you have elected. If you want such a law like HR 3755 in your state, why are you not on the phone with your state legislators? Why are you not gathering a coalition in your community, in your county, in the region of your state to get a bill like this passed? Right? Because you're lazy. This is your indictment. You are lazy. You want someone else to do it for you. And when someone else does something for you, guess what happens? Government runs amok. Now you're mad because they passed this. Well, where were you? Because the government is we the people, not them people. We the people. And if we don't like what they're doing up there, we have the First Amendment right to redress our government for the things that they are doing. And we should be redressing our state and local governments every day. Every time they open their mouth, they should be getting checked. Every single time. And this is where we're lost. Like you said, Miss Pinky, this is where we're lost. Because they're looking at Uncle Sam to solve all the problems that we have. When literally all it takes is for your local legislature and your state legislature to fix the problem. As you see in the reserved powers of government. That's all you vote for these people, and to hand that power over to the federal government, let's keep it 1,000, right? You're acting as a citizen that gives that away. You're acting unconstitutionally because you're giving your power away to an entity that doesn't need the power or is not supposed to have the power. See, this is why also I think home rule is very important. I personally think every city should be a home rule city. Every single city should be a home rule city for many reasons. One of them is the fact that you can change your local laws, and it doesn't have to affect the whole state. It just affects your community, right? Let's take this abortion thing for example, right? If it's a home rule county or home rule city, you can say no abortions in the city. The city can pass an ordinance, say no abortions in the city. Guess what? Boom, done. Vice versa. You want abortions legal in your city? Boom, pass an ordinance, abortion legal in your city. But as long as we have this mixed up, convoluted thought about the federal government being daddy and nullifying your states, it's only going to get worse. And we're going to end back up pre-1781 with the Articles of Confederation. We're going to end right back up at that point where you really have no rights to do everything, and Uncle Sam tells you exactly what to do and how to do it. You think that would work today?
It's happening. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
We have so-called Republicans voted for these red flag laws. I already seen Cawthorn, I think his name is, in North Carolina, trying to explain
Mm-hmm.
his way out of it over on Instagram. At least he's
Mm-hmm.
trying to say something. He's addressing his people, because I don't tag my representative a couple times in Twitter and I haven't seen anything. I don't know if he's going to do one of the mass mailers and something and send it out Monday, but um, yeah. So these are our politicians that we represent. So we need to be starting to put our foot on their necks. But I think it goes back to what Sonny Johnson says all the time about how our government doesn't fear us, doesn't respect us, and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
answer to us.
Right.
And I think we are, as people who study history or who love America, we talk about our heroes like Frederick Douglass and Harry Tubman, and we, kind of lean heavily on them, when I think now it's our turn to be somewhere in the history books for future generations, saying that our generation got up off our asses and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, did something. And I've been, as you see my timeline, I'm always telling people, so what y'all doing? And some lady say, what to do? I gave her like 8 or 9 things you could do. Boom, there you go. Pick one, do something.
Yep.
So, but I think and this is why I love our discussion, and I think a lot of people don't know these basic civic properties, like when you were talking about enumerated rights and the 3 things that are in there. They didn't understand, or people just don't know or remember, because school was a while ago. What exactly, how this is supposed to work, how this is supposed to run.
Right. And that's a big deal, because if you don't understand how the republic is supposed to work, then you've basically given up your individual rights, right? I mean, America was I'm sorry, the United States was founded on individualism, right? Liberty, even though we know our founders were hypocrites in the beginning. We know this. We admit that. We go forward from that, right? But today, understanding what liberty and freedom is, right?
Yeah.
Why would we want to throw that away to create a tyranny? That part baffles me with this whole thing, right? I mean, even if we talk about taxation, right? I mean, I'm sorry, but taxation is in a very, on a federal level, is unconstitutional. Now, if a state wants to have a state income tax, too legit. They can do it. 10th Amendment, right? They can do whatever they feel like. But the federal government's taxation on income tax has created a tyrannical government, because now not only do they steal it from us at gunpoint, right? They steal our money at gunpoint. And people don't understand that. They just think, oh no, we just give it up in a check. And just, I had some guy tell me, like, that gun talk is offensive. Like, they're not taking it from you at gunpoint. Don't pay your taxes, and who comes at your front door with a gun? Them people will come to your front door with a gun and put you in handcuffs for not paying taxes. So people can't sit here and tell me that they won't, they're not taking it from you at gunpoint. They're taking it from you at gunpoint. I mean, that's pretty much fascist if you ask me. But who am I, right? But if states want to impose taxation, that's their right under the 10th Amendment. That's their right. Impose honestly, like in a utopia, I don't like using utopia, but people that had common sense or weren't greedy, we wouldn't need taxation, because people would want to, donate some of their proceeds, some of their money, right, to make sure the roads are maintained, right? They chip in their few bucks a week or what have you to make sure the roads are maintained. You know what I mean? Kind of like how the 13 colonies were at one point, right? Like, people contributed, right, to the welfare of their community, right? They cared for the homeless, this, that, and the third, whatever. They did that. Now that the government has taken so much from us, we've become money hoarders, right? We're like, no, we're not spending it on that, or whatever, because they take so much money in taxes, then the inflation takes over. We literally have to hoard our money at this point. Even if they gave us that money back, right? Got rid of the federal income tax, we would still hoard it because we wouldn't want, to be without this, that, and the third, but yet still want to utilize roadways and, electricity and things like that. Like, it's a big convoluted mess that, if unraveled, would create chaos for a lot of people, because they have been okay with giving away their money to the federal government, no question, and allowing them to spend millions of dollars in other countries for causes we don't support or causes we shouldn't support, right? That's just my random thought. I mean, but we have to make sure we get back to this bill, this 3755. We have to get back to understanding what the powers of governments are: enumerated, concurrent, and reserved, right? We have to make sure we understand these things, and we become active in our community. We can become active in our state to get the legislation passed that we want, not what the federal government wants. Because I guarantee you, again, as I said, I guarantee you, people, if this gets through the Senate, Joe Biden's going to sign it. And
I
you
have,
go ahead.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also tweeting this, and someone asked, so I wanted to ask you. They said that you have to prove a state law was unconstitutional before you can preempt it. So how is the Congress allowed to actually circumvent Texas law with this act without proving first that the Texas Act violates the Constitution for them to be able to do that? Can they just go ahead and just be like, oh, we're going to do this and just make a law? Or
Supremacy clause.
Okay.
Supremacy clause is all they need, right? The supremacy clause is all they need. They don't have to prove a law is unconstitutional, right? And they're not necessarily targeting Texas, right?
Okay.
They're just doing a blanket preemption. Like, you can't pass any kind of laws, right? Let me pull it up real quick. Let me pull up the language of it real quick. Because it's not specifically targeting. No, I don't want a House amendment. I don't want that. Oh, wrong bill. I'm silly. There it is. I'll pull it up again here in a second. Let's see. Summary is in progress. Wow. They pulled it back. They must have been getting bombarded. All right. Let me slap this up here. All right. So I'm going to make this. I don't know how big that is, but I'll make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So just right from the rip, as we see it at the start, to protect a person's ability to determine whether to continue or end a pregnancy, and to protect healthcare providers' ability to provide abortion services, right? This is not targeting a specific state, but this will, right, again, use federal preemption to circumvent any other state laws by default because of the supremacy clause. That's the point. They don't have to prove anything, right? Abortion services are essential to healthcare, and access to those services is essential to people's ability to participate equally in the economic and social life of the United States. Abortion access allows people who are pregnant to make their own decisions about their pregnancies, their families, and their lives. So that's where that's at. So they're not proving, right? They're not proving, anything that the Texas law, and that we're going to pass it. The supremacy clause gives them basically the outright authority. But if they would have passed something like this before Texas, No big deal, right? It's no big deal. It's no problem. But this came about because of the Texas law. And I need to find the video, forgot what House Democrat House rep it was, but basically that's it. They basically said that in so many words. And I was like, wait a minute. And then I went to read it. I'm like, they sure did. This is exactly what they did. This is exactly what they did. So right here. So going back, did I mess it up? I think I messed it up. It's down here. There it is. But even still, right? As you read in the first part of that bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Health, it's healthcare, right? Public health, right? Y'all see what I'm talking about now? Y'all see what I'm talking about? Like, I don't see anything in here. The only way now let's go kind of a different direction with this, right? They could use the Commerce Clause to say abortion, right? Interstate commerce, right? It's an industry, right? They could try to pass it under that and still preempt state law. That's the other side of the debate that no one else is talking about either. Like they're using the Commerce Clause unconstitutionally, like have done for eons. Misinterpretation of the Commerce Clause. So that's the only that's another way they could slide it by. I wonder, you know what? Right here in real time, I wonder what the dissent is on this. Let's do this. Let's go back. Constitutional authority statement. Congressional record. Congress has the power to enact pursuant. Yeah, we know that. That's basic. No, so they haven't filled it out, the constitutional authority statement fully yet. But I would be I'd be interested to see how that one how that actually how that's going to play out in the end if it does pass, when it does pass the Senate. But I'm sure it won't. But it's just a fact of the matter that they want to pass a law on the federal level that doesn't even concern them to change up what state laws are. That's a huge problem. That's a huge problem for me.
It's a power grab, but I also think they know it's going to fail in the Senate, but they want to say, look what we did. We tried to champion abortion rights for you guys, and no Republicans in the Senate or misogynist. Look what they did, even though they didn't have precedents to do it in the first place. So it's a game. They know they don't have precedents, but they put it out there, and then when Republicans say no because of the lack of precedents, then it looks like the Republicans are the big meanies. So
it's like they set them up every single time, slam dunk every single time.
It'd be nice if the conservatives would come out with a preemptive, people in the House can write bills that are Republican too. I mean, they might not go nowhere, but they could be like, well, we tried, and look what Nancy Pelosi did. So I mean, they could do the same thing. But
it's all a dumb game.
I don't know if it's always part of the game, because they could be like, oops, hey, we actually got it passed because we are in charge of everything right now. But I do know they know sometimes that it ain't gonna. And then they'll just blame, oh, we live in a patriarchal system and it's set up for men or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a grift. Yeah, you're right. It's a grift. To garner more votes going into 2022. It's a grift. Look,
we tried to save y'all.
Yeah. And it's like, no.
Because they also set precedents, because if they're going to try that for abortion, I mean, they can try for gun control or whatever else. So.
Yep. Speaking of gun control, right? HR 4350, right? Let me pull it up on my manofjustice007.com here. Those of you that know the HR 4350, which is the NDAA. Let me add it to the stream. If it lets me add it to the stream, that'll work. Yeah, so we know the NDAA of 2020, HR 3550, is targeting the armed services. Let me scroll, see if I can make it big enough so people can partially read it here. But there's been controversy over this because people are saying, well, that it's not really a red flag law. That's not the language that it says. Okay, so it's okay to write a bill with language. Did Pinky leave? I think Pinky left. Okay, she'll be back, I guess. But as we see, I don't know if you guys can see this straight away. I can make it a little bit bigger. There we go. If we can see it, so we in section 529, there's language here that violates the Second, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment. Those of you that don't know the Second, Fourth, and Fifth, and you're new here, second is guns, fourth is right to privacy, and the fifth is due process, right? And we see here, we're going to start off here with this particular section in section 529A, right? A military protective order issued on ex parte basis shall restrain a person from possessing, receiving, or otherwise accessing a firearm. Okay? A military protective order issued after the person to be subject to the order has received notice and opportunity to be heard. Okay, and then on the order shall restrain such persons from possessing, receiving, or otherwise accessing a firearm in accordance to section 922 of Title 18. Okay, so now let's go with some legal definitions here, right? So people understand what's in this. What this language is, with those of you that will be coming through later. Ex parte is done with respect to or in the interest of one side only or of an interested outside party. Let's go back. A military court protective order issued on an ex parte basis shall restrain a person from possessing, receiving, or otherwise accessing a firearm. I mean, I read pretty well, and I'm sure you read that pretty well. You know exactly what that says, knowing what ex parte means, right? Here's the other kicker in all this that people are not thinking about in this piece. I mean, there's other pieces in this bill that should be single issue items, like the Tigray genocide. That should be a separate bill. All that, but it bundled it all into one, which is stupid because there are many different issues. But if we look at section 529A, subsection 1801, right? They're creating an office of countering terrorism inside the Department of Defense. Now, people say, "Oh, Rod, well, why is that important?" Well, we just heard that the military, especially the Marine Corps, is riddled with white supremacy. Am I right? The military itself is riddled with white supremacy, right? So they've labeled conservatives, libertarians, and pro-Second Amendment folks as white supremacists, right? Y'all know where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've said white supremacy is the biggest national security risk and domestic terror threat in the United States. See where this is going?
Yep.
So just because someone has an ideological position, they can be labeled a white supremacist, which becomes a terror threat. They can issue a restraining order against you because They think you are a terror threat and take your weapons away. Don't be mistaken, people. This is the line of logic we're living in right now.
I think it's interesting. Also, I want to add that we
Mm-hmm.
had this all come about because of, the attack on 9/11. But you know how they were ready to get rid of the war in Afghanistan and bring everybody home, but no one's talked about getting rid of everything else that came out of 9/11, like the Patriot Act or repealing all of, this, the Homeland Security and all of that. And I think it's because they are doing stuff like this. Oh, we have other
Mm-hmm.
domestic terrorism that we have to worry about now. See what
Mm-hmm.
happens when we cede some of our liberties for safety because we're scared. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't never see them roll any of that stuff back either. I mean, if
No.
y'all want to end the war in Afghanistan, the next thing we should have been like, okay, so who's getting rid of the Patriot Act now? We shouldn't need that
Right.
no more, right? Since it's over.
Yep. Yep.
But here we are.
And just and just with that red flag gun law, I use an example, as y'all can see here, with the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, right? That was passed in Florida a couple of years ago after the unfortunate Parkland incident, right? Now y'all can read this on manofjustice007.com. But ever since the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act was passed, it was used 3,500 times to confiscate firearms and other weapons from Floridians, right? Some of these Floridians are paying almost $250,000 to get their constitutional rights restored because someone told a lie or assumed something. Think about that a second. Who does this really affect at the end of the day, people? Who does this actually affect at the end of the day? It affects the common Joe like me and Miss Pinky and you that's watching in the comments, or will be watching this later. It affects you because you don't have $250,000 to buy your constitutional rights back. And you shouldn't have to buy them back. They shouldn't be infringed upon in the first place. But this is what happens when we allow Uncle Sam up in the 66 mile square to do what he wants with impunity on our rights and liberties. Don't think for a second, people, that this type of bill will not will become a separate federal type red flag gun law since they're going to try to get this pushed through. If this passes, this sets a precedent. They can come back with I forgot what one of the gun bills they have up there, the bipartisan something bill that was presented by what's his name, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina, right, about universal background checks and all that, right? That brings all that back into play. So people don't sleep on your civil liberties, your constitutional rights, because when you do, they're going to snatch them all. They're going to snatch them all from you, and you have to buy them back with a fee. You have to buy your rights back for a fee. It's like you're buying your freedom. How much sense does that make, people? Buying your freedom. It's disheartening. But we have to continue to keep fighting for our rights at all costs. No matter who shames you, no matter who talks about you, you have to continue with the fight for your constitutional rights, your liberties, your civil liberties. Because if you don't, you will find yourself one day in a situation you can't get rid of because you slept on your rights. You gave away your rights by being silent. Then you have no recourse, do you? you become a subject of the government, right? Ms. Pinky, anything you want to add, jump in, ask?
No, I'm just saying that I think a lot of people don't understand how our rights are lined out, and like I said before, how our Constitution works. So you can't really know if your rights are being infringed upon if you don't know what they are. So I love these discussions we're having, and I think I started a discussion over there on Twitter. When you get a chance, when we're finished, to go check that out, because a lot of people say, "Well, this is supposed to happen and that's supposed to happen," and I'm like, "You and I know that, but if we can't get enough people to understand that, then Uncle Sam is just going to bulldoze over on us." So we need people to come participate in things like this, come ask y'all questions, and we try to have more discussions, so that way people know what their rights are and then know that they're being infringed upon, so they can fight back, and know the ways we can fight back as well.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we just, we have to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing to make sure people know. Even when we get censored or shadow banned, put it in the ether. Someone is going to see it. And someone will pass along the message, right? At this point, we can't care about censorship. We can't care about any of that stuff. Our civil liberties, our government is running rogue all over them, and people just don't seem to care. So this is why I do this every Sunday. So I want to appreciate everybody that's going to watch this later. Thank you for watching it then. Everybody that's watching it live right now, I appreciate y'all too. Make sure you come back next Sunday. Same bat time, same bat channel. And we're going to find something else to talk about constitutionally and civics. I think next week I'll probably do like a small civics thing. I think it's a great idea. Yeah. We'll do a civics thing next week. Miss Pinky, thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
And we will see y'all another time. Peace.